Welcome to the Valor Flight Crew Podcast, hosted by Echo and brought to you by Vertical Helicast and Vertical Valor Magazine. In this episode of the Valor Flight Crew Podcast, we're chatting with Paula Burke, a paramedic with Ireland's National Ambulance Service, who joined us all the way from Cork, Ireland, at the Echo Public Safety Aviation Conference in Richmond, Virginia. We get to dive into the differences and surprising similarities between pre-hospital care in Ireland and the U.S., as well as chat about HEMS operations abroad, mental health support in EMS, and how we all face the same challenges, just with different accents. So give it a listen and get a fresh perspective on pre-hospital medicine from across the pond. Thank you to our sponsors, Airbus, Metro Aviation, and Precision Aviation Group.
Welcome to the Valor Flight Crew Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and Vertical Valor Magazine. Produced in partnership with Echo, Every Coast Helicopter Operations, the Valor Flight Crew Podcast promotes the personnel and life-saving equipment behind helicopter air ambulance services. Join hosts Mike Fidale and Blake Shrider for in-depth interviews and expert insights from air medical personnel, pilots, communication specialists, and maintenance crews who play critical roles in airborne emergency response.
Line 1 accepting.
Copy, Line 1, gotcha, accepting. You're going to be talking to Red Feather 1 on LCEMS.
And welcome to the Valor Flight Crew Podcast, hosted by Echo. I'm one of your hosts, Blake Shrider.
And I'm Mike Fidale, and we're coming to you from our annual Public Safety Aviation Conference in Richmond, Virginia.
And thanks for listening in. We have an exciting episode for you today. We're going to be talking about pre-hospital medicine across the pond. Echo continues to grow. We have members from now international from all over. And today we have a special guest here visiting the conference from Ireland. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Paula Burke. I'm a paramedic in Ireland working for the National Ambulance Service. At the moment, I work in Cork City, which is in the southern part of the country. The real capital, as Irish people will say, it's not Dublin. The Rebels country. I am initially from Galway, which is on the west coast, and I did my nursing degree there in NUIG in Galway before moving down to Cork. So I was working in Cork University Hospital. It's the only level 1 trauma centre in Ireland.
Wow.
At the moment. And that was actually the reason I moved down there, was to work at that hospital with the aim of coming here. But COVID happened and suddenly I was in the National Ambulance Service and I'm still there 5 years later.
That's really cool. I think that's going to be part of the fun of having these discussions, just to be able to learn what things are like in other parts of the world. And I think the United States, good, bad, or indifferent, where, we have trauma centers in every corner, we have ambulances in every corner, we have helicopters in every corner. And so just to hear what some of the things are like in another part of the world is going to be so interesting. But before we get into that, we'd like to do our icebreaker for the day.
All right. So if you pull up your phone and open your iPod or whatever music app that you listen to, what was the last song you were listening to?
Oh my God, it was on like shuffle.
That's okay.
I'm not even really sure what this song is. It's Empire by Beth Crowley. I wish it was something cool, like Fleetwood Mac or something, but like...
Mike, what's on yours?
So on mine, it was Jelly Roll, I'm Not Okay.
Great song. All right. Mine was Mumford & Sons' White Blank Page was the last one I was listening to.
All right. Nice.
So that's going to kind of be our icebreaker moving forward. We want to try to see what are you listening to? See what everybody likes.
Not this.
No, that's okay.
All right, awesome. So moving on with things, like I guess first and foremost, how did you hear about Echo from all the way in Ireland?
Actually, a bit of a long story.
All right, well, we're here to listen.
Many, many years ago when I met MB, started this little thing where I come over on holidays and I do little medical adventures and visit hospitals and helicopter bases and stuff like that. And I text her in, I think it was July, and I was like, so I'm planning the annual trip, will we set something up? And she was like, I'm actually going to a conference in Richmond, Virginia from this date to this date. And I was like, cool, let me know when you're back. We'll meet up. And she was like,
right.
Do you want to come? I was like,
Perfect.
Am I allowed to go to something like that? She was
why not?
like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, everyone will know so many things and I'll just be there.
Awesome. So how's the conference been for you so far? What are your thoughts?
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I definitely want to come next year. It's so much fun.
A lot of connections made throughout the week.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I will say I am exhausted.
Yeah.
I was so excited to come here and so excited to be here, like tuckered myself out with excitement.
Yeah, I'm
just
sure.
wrecked.
I think we're all kind of feeling that kind of same boat. It's been not only the prep leading up to the conference, but once you're actually here, and then it goes so fast, and here we are, our last
it's
day,
crazy.
essentially.
This week has flown by. But, all the work that goes into it from our volunteers all year long really it really brings it all together in this moment. And it's something that is amazing to see, for all of these sponsors and vendors to be here supporting Echo and supporting the mission and the frontline staff. Like it's just an amazing experience to see everybody coming together like this. So we're so happy that you could be part of it.
Yes, thank you.
Well, everyone at home is very interested. So if you're
Spread the word.
If you're up for more international
Absolutely.
visitors next year,
We are
sure I'll
always
have a
up for
group.
international visitors.
Absolutely.
By all means.
So, Paula, can you tell us a little bit about what HEMS or helicopter EMS, what that's like in Ireland?
It's definitely a bit different to here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely don't have the saturation of helicopter support that you have here. So now I don't work for HEMS in Ireland, so my information might be a bit sketchy. But at the moment, as far as the National Ambulance Service, we have 2 helicopters in the country.
Okay.
Now, bear in mind, Ireland is like smaller than New Jersey. So, it's...
That should probably cover it.
Yeah. So we won an loan in the
But we do have a lot more than 2 helicopters
In New Jersey,
Yeah.
exactly. they'll beg to differ.
So we've one work cool in Cork. So Cork is where I work. And we've one working out of there and one in the Midlands in Athlone that kind of covers the middle of it. I know here you do a lot of like inter-hospital transfers with helicopters. I know it does happen. I've heard of it happening while I was working in the hospital, but I don't know if that's the standard over there.
Okay.
I know, like me personally, we bring a lot of peds from Cork to Dublin. So that would all be ground transfer.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'd bring them by ambulance up to Dublin. I suppose unless something was like really, really...
And how long of a trip would that be for you guys by ground?
3 hours.
3 hours.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Why would they not call a helicopter for something like that?
Unfortunately, these transfers seem to like a lot of the time happen in the middle of the night. We seem to go to Dublin on nights a good bit, and our helicopter doesn't fly at night.
Interesting.
I'm sorry for the silence.
Dramatic effect.
Yeah.
No. It's not unheard of, I think, in our industry, especially here in America. We've done a lot of things to enhance safety, especially at night. We always know that flying in a helicopter, doing EMS alone by itself can be dangerous and challenging. And then you add into the factors of nighttime, reduced visibility. I'm ignorant to the weather in Ireland, but I can only assume that there's
Not great.
probably a lot of weather issues too. So, people may wonder why not. I can only imagine it has to deal with just absolutely being as safe as possible when moving patients.
Yeah.
To only operate during daylight hours.
I'm sure. I know, okay, I don't know. It's one of them, the Army or the Coast Guard.
Right.
One of these guys can fly at night, but they don't generally do transfers and patient moving and stuff.
Okay.
Wow.
Are they mainly more like search and rescue or like emergency call outs for somebody that's injured or stranded? Is that where they would respond typically?
Yeah, I know the Coast Guard would do a lot of that, and I have been on calls. For instance, this is quite a while ago, but it was a cardiac arrest after a drowning at one of the beaches that was out on the East Coast. Wow. So, we went. I know the Coast Guard was there. It turned out not, in fact, to be a cardiac arrest. So the Coast Guard left, but I didn't have to have much to do with them.
Wait,
that
so
day.
what you're telling me is even in Ireland, you can receive a call for help, a call for service as a cardiac arrest, and you get there, it's not a cardiac arrest? That happens? That happens
That
elsewhere?
never
Yeah.
happens here.
That's
Are you
becoming
kidding
a
me?
little more common with our new PDLS code. I don't even know if I said that right. There's a thing called a 6 echo, which comes in as agonal ineffective breathing.
Yeah.
So it's like respiratory arrest. I don't know if I should be saying this. I'll definitely get murdered. I've went to 4 of these 6 echoes, and 3 of them, the patient walked out to the ambulance, and one of them didn't travel.
Had
and not
refusal,
because it was an
refusal of
actual
care,
arrest.
right.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, that happens. Sometimes we can only be as good as the information we receive sometimes. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess, when you talk about getting into HEMS and pre-hospital medicine in general, we hear that it's kind of a little bit different in Ireland as far as the steps you have to go through. Are you able to talk a little bit about like what the education process is for someone to get into pre-hospital medicine and then eventually get into flying?
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, and save lives and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually in the last couple of years changing a little bit, but it's still... So it's one ambulance service. It's not like here where there's like loads and you can kind of pick and choose. It's the national ambulance service. So they serve the entirety of Ireland. So they will run a recruitment campaign and people will apply through that. So you don't need to have any background in emergency anything. When I applied, you needed your truck license. Now, obviously, there's basic education requirements, but you needed a truck license and you went from there. So you put in your application. You got called for an aptitude
Truck license
test.
meaning like in the US, like a CDL, like for driving big,
like
18
tractor
wheelers.
trailer.
Okay.
We have this tail lift that I was telling you about before that adds a lot of weight onto the ambulance.
got it.
Yes.
Fantastic though. Yeah, so you do an aptitude test, then you go for an interview and you get panelled. So there's 3 sites for training in Ireland. There's Ballinasloe in Galway, there's Tullamore and there's Tala in Dublin. So they're the 3 National Ambulance Service colleges. And you'll go up and do like a year there. It's split differently. When I did it, it was you did a week's induction, a week's observer placement as third person on an ambulance. Then you went up and had 12 weeks of education, 5 weeks placement, exams, and you were back and forth kind of for the year. Then you become an intern. So interns can't work independently without a qualified practitioner. So like that, for a year, you work with someone that's qualified, you're learning from them. And that used to be it. And it used to be a diploma. Whereas now, in the last couple of years, it's gone to degree level. So when you're out on your internship, you are doing online courses and stuff with UCC, University College Cork. And you do your year at that. You are then qualified. You have a FEC license as a paramedic. And then you have another year of college to do while you're still on the road. So it's very much hybrid that you're working and learning at the same time.
But you come out of
Just
it
such a
with a
different
degree.
Which is the amazing part. You are paid throughout your training and you are not paying
What's
for
that
college. It's unbelievable.
What's that like?
Wow.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Now, I don't know if it'll be that way forever, the way things expand and stuff. But at the moment, it's a really good opportunity for people to come in and not put themselves into massive debt to get a degree.
Yeah, no kidding. That's an awesome process. It sounds like it's very intense and a lot, obviously. So total for that whole process to happen, like what's the time frame that we're talking?
3 years.
3 years for that.
And that doesn't count how long you waited to get in. So it can really take.
And that's for paramedic level training?
Paramedic level training, yeah.
Okay.
What's the wait time? Like if you were to apply, typically, what would you say people would wait to possibly get accepted?
I've heard of people waiting like a year. I think when I joined the panel, I was an intern nurse and they recruited. And I did always have it in my mind that this is what I wanted to do. And there was actually a recruitment embargo on in Ireland when I was kind of getting into everything. So the National Ambulance Service weren't recruiting at all.
Okay.
So I went ahead and did nursing. And then in my 4th year when I was an intern, I just applied to give myself the option. So I was on the panel for quite a while because I got the job down in Cork and I moved there and I just kept not accepting classes when the expression of interest came out because I was like, what am I going to do? Am I going to go abroad? And then when COVID hit, I think it was like the last class of my panel. Like I am on this panel and most of my class are on an entirely different panel after me. So I really pushed it to the
very end.
Yeah. But I think about a year.
Okay.
It could be longer, it could be shorter, depending on your place on the panel. think in my class in Ballinasloe, there was 30 students.
Okay.
So if we were going 30, 30, 30, that's only 90. And generally these classes are run twice a year. I think they start in September and January.
Okay.
So in terms of volume of paramedics coming out every year, it's definitely not the same as here.
Sure. I mean,
No.
you have a mass exodus of providers because of retiring or whatnot. Like it could be a while before you get some additional help in there through the system. And there you
Yeah,
go.
definitely. Now, there is another college doing a paramedic degree in Ireland at the moment in Limerick. So I know previously they had been going to England to do their placements because they weren't affiliated with the National Ambulance Service. But they are trialling now, allowing those students to do their internships here in Ireland and come home. And of course, that increases our numbers.
Sure.
Perfect.
And so you said you went through nursing school first, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so what possessed you to go from being a nurse to the paramedicine route? Like what was it that drew you in that direction? Or was that always the end game and was nursing kind of the medium for you? And forgive me, I mean, skill set wise and career wise, like is there like the difference between what your skill set is, where you're able to go with things as far as your licensing and the skills you're able to provide?
I mean, nursing is just, you can go anywhere with it and
Sure.
you can do absolutely anything. I know at the moment, like looking at the difference in scopes over here, as a paramedic, I would have a massive amount of training to do. Say if I was to come over here to be a paramedic, the scope of practice is nowhere near the same. So we have a level above paramedic, advanced paramedic. So paramedics on the ground, I know all your guys do intubation and start IVs and I was going to say cannulation, but someone pointed out to me yesterday that they had no idea what I was talking about. They thought I was talking about balloon pumps.
Right. ECMO in the field.
Yeah. So we'd say cannulation for starting
for
an
IVs,
IV.
right?
Yeah.
It's funny because we don't think of it that way, but it's,
Right.
IV cannula, but that
We're
makes
definitely
sense.
not putting in balloon
Right,
pumps
yeah.
in Ireland. I'll tell you that. Our paramedics wouldn't intubate. We'd use less definitive airways in the case of cardiac arrests.
Okay.
And we wouldn't start IVs or anything like that. So that would be our advanced paramedic.
Sure.
So that's another level of training all on its own. And it's actually gone or going to master's level at the moment. It had been a postgrad. Yeah.
Wow. So and that's to be able to intubate and do some of those more advanced skills.
Yep.
Wow. And so going to a master's level, how long are we talking here? Like a 5-year, 6-year program?
So you have to serve your time as a paramedic before you can apply for
Wow.
this. Now, at the moment, they're not running the advanced paramedic course in Ireland. They are looking at expanding things. So avenues like it's going to be a mental health paramedic, community paramedic, and critical care paramedic.
Okay.
There had been a critical care class. I really can't tell you much about why it hasn't gone ahead.
Sure.
I'm sure it was something to do with CPGs and
Right.
clinical practice guidelines. The community paramedic is getting off the ground and that's fantastic. It's aimed at keeping people at home and stopping unnecessary transfers to hospital.
It's funny because we always complain about these issues. We face the same thing,
Yeah,
especially
sure.
with just growing populations. And it's so interesting to hear that you're talking about community paramedicine. It's something that we've just started in our area where I'm at
And
now.
there's many
Florida.
areas in the U.S. that just really don't have the infrastructure to even implement something like that
Right.
yet.
It takes such a good relationship between your pre-hospital providers and your hospital receiving facilities to be able to integrate that type of care to make sure that it's one successful and safe.
If you like that, you're going to love this. Obviously, I work in Cork and we are very well provided for in Cork in terms of pre-hospital doctors and stuff like that. We have 2 volunteer doctors, emergency medicine doctors that come out and do critical care level stuff
Right.
when we need them. But we also have this thing called the APCAR, the Alternative Pre-Hospital Pathway CAR. So it is an emergency department registrar, which I'm not sure what that is in your level. I think consultant is attending and registrar is below that.
Okay.
A really good doctor.
So one of the specialists is what you would.
Yeah, so they will be on this cute little car with an EMT, and they'll have supplies, we'll say.
Right.
And we might go out to a call and be like, oh, definitely need some sort of treatment. Doesn't really need to go to the ED. So we can ring the app car and say, will you come out and see this patient here?
Wow.
So they can do point of care bloods and write prescriptions and sort people out at home. So again, that is stopping people being brought to hospital unnecessarily. And we also have, that's just started like a year ago, the Pathfinder. So we have an advanced paramedic, and depending on the day, you'll have an occupational therapist or a physio on with them. So we might go out and it might kind of be a social issue, or they're not managing at home and they need a few extra supports, which again, why bring someone in to sit on a trolley in A&E and like hate their lives for a day?
Yeah.
So we can actually call them and they'll come out and do an assessment in the house. And they have a certain amount of equipment with them, like bed rails and walkers and commodes, that they can get them sorted right there in the house. So if that's the issue,
right.
there's a fix.
Easily be taken care of there.
And they'll follow up on them then to make sure that they're like doing okay.
And getting
Wow.
what they need to be able to stay at home. And again, it's so interesting to hear you say that. It's like the same issues you're facing, we face as well. And I think a lot of pre-hospital care, especially, I think everybody learned so much from COVID on what we can and can't do, and the things that we can do, we're able to just expand on that and getting the hospital systems to really buy into that. And for them, it can be cost savings. Why bring that patient into the ER? We can go to them, and then having that good partnership can really help this stuff be really successful. That's awesome.
And the older people love it. Oh my God, they're so grateful. They're like, I don't have to go there.
Yeah, exactly.
This is amazing.
I know.
So, talking more about getting back into the HEM side of things, but, now that it's taken you 20 years to get to an advanced paramedic level, right? Like, what else does someone need to do then in order to get into aviation in Ireland? Or is that more of a you put your time in and then when you've reached that point and there's an opening you can apply kind of deal?
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
So I'm pretty sure just from listening in the base, some of the criteria that came around was that you needed to have a master's level to apply. Now, previous years when the advanced paramedic wasn't that level, I think there was a bit of back and forth about that because obviously they're trying to expand things and they're trying to, level up essentially.
Sure.
But in this kind of interim where things are changing, where say there's a lot of paramedics on the road who mightn't have the degree. So, do they go out and do it even though they've been doing this for 20 years and they have massive experience? And then you have a 21-year-old kid that's now coming out with the degree. And I think there's just going to be a bit of
back and forth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Trying to find that right balance.
Yeah.
So on these two helicopters, what is
They're so good we only need two.
Yes, perfect. Yes, I'm sorry. Like it still blows my mind because I feel like we have literally in some places two helicopters sitting
side by side
next to each other. At one of my old bases, we used to literally our trailers would touch with a competitive agency at an airport.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's crazy. So
we don't even have that many ambulances.
So on these two helicopters, what kind of crew configurations are they typically running? Are they doing dual pilot, single pilot? Are they doing doctor, medic? Like, what's the configuration there?
I know they had got a new helicopter recently, so it had been a single pilot and two crew. There is now two pilots. And up until a couple of months ago, there was a new recruitment ran. So new people have been brought onto the helicopter. So a few of the transfers that I've done kind of in very recent memory, there had been one advanced paramedic and two pilots.
I'm sorry, one.
However, now that they have the new guys, from what I've seen of them recently, there's two pilots and two advanced paramedics.
Wow.
Every so often there's a doctor.
I'm thankful for that. I would not want to be in the back of the helicopter working on a critical patient by myself.
By yourself.
Yeah.
You show up to scene. Hey, Mike, you got this?
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you
Peace
there.
out.
Yeah.
You're good.
That's not how this works.
How many times are we like, man, I should have been a pilot? And those pilots up front are like, I'm so glad that I'm flying because he's by himself back there. That's
Some of the
amazing,
guys
though.
did look a little bit stressed when we
I
met
could
them
only
at,
I have no
imagine.
doubt.
at the Gaelic pitch where we meet them by the hospital.
Wow. No,
But,
it's so fascinating to hear how things work. And I mean, I'm sure you guys make it work at the end of the day. Like it's,
Yeah.
it's a system
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
has it's obviously in place for a reason. And I think that's just so cool to find out about things. The concept of that is something completely different than what you would ever see in the US.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do have some agencies that typically they're law enforcement agencies that do have a paramedic on board. And oftentimes there's only one paramedic. So if their police agency is responding out on a medevac call, that one paramedic that's in the back will actually take somebody from the ground ambulance with them in the helicopter to the hospital.
To help manage the patient, yeah.
Right. So there's that kind of a system that's out there, and they're primarily doing scene calls, and they're carrying all the good stuff these days. They've got blood on board and all the fun things for trauma, but it's just a very different system. I mean, most of your
Very
HEDS
different.
most of your HEDS agencies obviously have, two providers in the back and a single pilot. And so it's crazy to hear just how the operations occur in Ireland. It's
Sometimes
fascinating
the
to
doctor
me.
comes out.
Sometimes the doctor comes out.
There is a couple of the guys that are very kind of pre-hospitally inclined and do have an interest. So I know there is one doctor who works in North Cork and he works in Cork University Hospital, and I have seen him in the flight suit.
Awesome.
All right, awesome.
Bringing it back to, so trying to get into the HEMS industry is one. You're talking about being on the National Ambulance Service. I think one thing that Echo, at least for here in America, one of the things that has been really brought forward in the aspect of safety, but it's also taking care of our own providers, talking mental health wise, peer support, things like that. Is that something that you guys are able to focus on or have something like that set in place?
Yeah, absolutely. Just off the top of my head, we have the Employee Assistance Program.
Okay.
So they are, to the best of my knowledge, apart from the National Ambulance Service. It's available to the greater HSE because, everything is national in Ireland. And if you're having a tough time, if you have a tough call, if you want to talk to someone who's, say, completely apart from the situation, there's a list of numbers in different areas and you can ring, and I think you get 6 counselling sessions to start.
Okay.
And they're very impartial. And then we have our CISM. So
Sure.
every base will
Right.
have a CISM.
So internal teams with those bases then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's people who actually go and they do this CISM course and they are trained in how to respond. So if you have a really tough call or something happens, you can ring them up and have a chat, and there is a designated person.
Okay.
Now, of course, it is great to have those, but yourselves, I mean, you have your own people really that you'll go to first.
Right.
Sure.
But then if you need a little more, there is supports in place.
Okay. Yeah, and I think so. It's interesting that you have a CISM person that's present at every base. And obviously, one of the facets of Echo being our flight crew assistance and support team was put in place for the fact that I think in the police and the fire world there was a much better system in place for when something happened, and to have the resources that you need and to have that peer system to help you through that process. But in EMS, we really didn't do a whole lot. We take care of, other people all day long, and we never took care of ourselves. And we just, brush it under the rug, and we hope that all that cumulative trauma doesn't bounce back one of these days. But we know that it does. And so we were aiming to change some of that with starting up our flight crew assistance and support team. And FAST has been, instrumental in a lot of programs and helping a lot of providers out there. And I think also been a catalyst for a lot of programs bringing in their own internal peer support teams, normalizing mental health and mental well-being. And moving forward. And I think one of the things that we discussed, early on was we had looked at CISM, CISD check, and I think that there's certainly a time and a place for a lot of that kind of training and education and implementation, but it's not always, what someone is looking for in that moment. And so that's why we went with more of a peer support model where there's some concepts of that are incorporated in there, but we have our team members are all trained through and have certifications in various peer support courses rather than a specific CISM or CISD. And I think we're starting to see a lot of that within agencies, but it's not a standard that it's there. We're still working on making this a standard.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you guys have somebody at each of those particular bases or stations that would be that designated person.
Yeah. And Cork City is one of the biggest bases in Ireland. So when you're going down to Castletownbere, You guys don't know where that is, but afterwards,
No,
if you
not a
look at
clue.
a
Not at all.
map,
But I'm going to shake
it
my
is
head like I do now.
It's like the edge of the world, basically. And like they're kind of down there on their own. So I'm sure they have a person, may not be like in the base or present all the time, but there is like it is regionalized as well. So there might be someone
Okay.
for the south, someone for
Sure.
yeah. What happens in the county bases, I'm not really sure.
Do you have any kind of like automatic triggers? Like that's something that we're working towards is like, if there's some, and at my particular flight service, primarily we're looking at like what triggers would automatically kind of allow for this team to be able to have a conversation or follow up. So we're trying to normalize peer support, right? Like if my, medical director or my manager knows that I've had a really rough call that didn't go well, and I'm kind of like, anybody would be shooken up from that situation. What is the automatic trigger to have somebody from peer support reach out to me, and that I should be able to find that as like a normal, check-in kind of thing. So is there anything like that in place for you guys, or is it something
Like
that you
a
have to
debrief?
personally, not necessarily a debrief, but just somebody to be like, hey, I heard you had a rough call the other day.
Oh,
How we doing with it? Do you
absolutely.
need to talk about anything?
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
Obviously, things filter through, and especially like if it happens on nights, there might be someone there immediately, but everyone does hear. And if it is something
Right.
like that, someone will check in, hey, how you doing? As you know, we're all great at like looking after each other in terms of that. Like, oh God, Mike was at a really bad call the last day. I'm like, well, I might just like send him a little
Yeah.
text and
Right.
see how he is. And then if it's some of the bigger situations, and I was brand new at this point, but it's one of the ones that stick in my mind. So our controls and people that give us the calls and tell us where to go. There was a particularly tough call one morning. And when we left and we went to clear, she actually came back over the radio and said, I've flagged this with headquarters. So what you guys are going to do is you're going to stop and get a coffee on the way back, and you're all going to get together and just have a coffee and chat. You're off the stack. Like, don't worry about it for a while.
That's awesome.
That's
She
really
took that on herself. She was
Yeah.
fantastic.
That's awesome.
And she was like, no, that was terrible. You're going for coffee.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's good to hear that is becoming a normalization, in other places as well. And I think we still have a long way to go and a lot of work to do to make it happen. But it's great to see that you do have some of those support systems in place.
We're getting better.
Yeah.
So just one at a time, just a little bit.
Exactly.
And you did mention debrief. So do you guys typically debrief after every like patient encounter, or just only if it's appropriate or needed? Or
Yeah, I suppose appropriate and needed are big words there. We all know that there's
there's a subtle difference between the two, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So, of course, like between yourselves and the ambulance, if there's a call that you found challenging, you'll talk it out together.
Sure.
If it is something that has involved multiple agencies, like the fire service would assist us a lot. So would the guards. And in a call that's springing to my mind, that's literally in the last few weeks, we had our armed guards, because they're not armed as standard. We have like a special branch that's armed.
That's right.
The
Yeah.
rest aren't. So we had our armed guards, the normal guards, we had the fire service, we had the first responders. So there's like a text alert that goes out for a cardiac arrest in people's areas. And obviously they can go, and if they're going to get there before us, they can start CPR and initiate care.
Sure.
But there was just loads of us basically. So we all had a debrief outside of the ED afterwards. So there was a lot. And it was a case that did definitely require a debrief.
Okay.
But yeah, if there's something big like that, the tactical manager might initiate it and call us together. But otherwise, you can talk to each other.
And kind of let it in just,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do enjoy that part because it feels very informal and you don't feel pressured.
Yeah,
But like Mike said, if we're able to just kind of normalize that, you can have that conversation with somebody and it helps you get to that next step if needed.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter what part of the world you're in. Like working in pre-hospital medicine, we see some crazy shit.
Yeah,
right?
trauma's trauma.
Trauma is trauma, and we don't ever deal with that. So it gets cumulative after a while, and we all reach that breaking point at some point where we need to be able to process this appropriately, or it's just going to continue to get worse.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to get on my soapbox, but it's one of those things I'm rather passionate about, and I think that we all need to do a better job of it. But it's good to see that you have some of those systems in place over there.
Absolutely.
So what do you think going forward? What does the future look like for you over the next 3 to 5 years?
Ooh, I'm nearly afraid to say. I suppose coming back here to work was always something that was in my mind, especially the conversation in MB's office quite a number of years ago where she said, just go home and become a nurse and then you'll get back here. So I suppose coming back here was always the plan. It is something that I'm definitely still interested in, just to experience properly how you do things over here. Like, it's great to come over for a visit and go to a conference or visit a hospital or a base, but I definitely like to see more of what you do, like on the ground, and actually experience it. So hopefully in 3 to 5 years.
I'm curious as far as like, if you in 3 to 5 years, if your dream job shows up in the United States and you decide that you'd like to come over here, like what kind of a transition would that be for you as far as licensure and certifications, and what kind of a process would you have to go through in order for something like that to happen?
So I'd definitely be coming as a nurse.
Okay.
Because I don't think my paramedic license will transfer, as it is one of the education
Which is also
guys here.
floors me, considering how much training you have to go to get to the level that you're at. And a lot of paramedic programs in the United States are anywhere from 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I can't, with all you can do, I can't believe that.
Yes. All you can do in 12 to 18 months.
Oh my God. Like, we, even as advanced paramedics, like, you still don't RSI in Ireland or anything. And
oh, really?
You're doing like 12 months and you're doing all of this. That's accelerated.
One of the interesting things, though, I think in the States too, is a lot of times like that regulation and stuff is designated by each state. So even for us, like for me to be a paramedic in Florida, if I wanted to go to a different state, my license may not, the education that I've received may or may not cover that. So for us, there could be, all right, well, you got to go to this school, get this certificate or training, and then you would be able to test and take the license for that state. So it is a little bit different because all the different states, they all kind of make up a lot of times their own regulatory and education requirements for that.
I think National Registry is helping a little bit with that.
Yes, finally.
Finally, National Registry is absolutely helping with some of that stuff. But it still can be a challenge for some people from state to state here.
I did look years ago, and I mean like years ago at this stage, trying to transfer over the EMT license that I had. I was an EMT before I became a nurse, and then
Right.
I've just been bopping around for a long time.
No.
I did look at trying to get reciprocity in New Jersey for my EMT license.
Okay.
And honestly, no, I was a good bit younger, but it was like double Dutch. I was like, oh my God, what is going on? And then, of course, that's only the beginning, because being from Ireland, I'm going to have a lot of visa issues and sponsorship, and it's going to be a pretty long process. I think the educational side might be the easiest part of the whole process.
Of the entire thing would be the education. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, it almost makes more sense to just go through a program here, and it probably would be quicker.
I did look at that previously. MB has been working tirelessly for the last 10 years. A lot of the student visas to come over only allows you to work 20 hours a week. Sometimes there's a lot of kind of regulations around that. And then, of course, at the end, you're on a student college visa. And when that visa ends, your welcome in the country has expired.
Sure.
So then you will face the exact same issues then again in terms of visas. So I think anyone like looking to come over here, like obviously needs to be aware that it's a long process, but also you will need someone to support that sponsorship. And I'm definitely going to be counting on a lot of people here to talk me through this, because it seems to be.
Well, the good news is you made 530 new friends
Right.
I
this
know,
week.
it's fantastic. Hey guys.
So you've got some resources now and certainly some people to help you out along the way.
I knew this conference would be good.
It's definitely a big family here. It still feels like that. As large as Echo has gotten, it still feels like it's a tight, close-knit group.
Absolutely. It like day one walked in and I was like, oh wow, like everyone here is so fantastic, so welcoming. At no point was I like, oh, I'm like an outsider, I'm going to hide in the corner. It was like, in here to the middle, come on, we're bringing you to do this and that. And I was like, oh, okay.
The biggest thing is we are like, I mean, for people like us, like everybody that joins Echo, obviously we all do this for the right reasons. And it's just so nice to be able to hear how other parts of the world are doing things. That's one of Echo's biggest missions is, for flight crews, by flight crews, and the industry just keeps growing, and anything that we can do and learn from each other to just keep us safe and just keep us going to the next level each time is really what we're all about. So we really appreciate you chatting with us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
This has been an awesome experience.
Really
I feel like
cool.
I could talk to you for another few hours just learning about all the differences and nuances within our
I
systems.
feel like I definitely segued off a lot of like the point.
Not at all.
It's so fascinating to hear all this stuff. So we can't thank you enough for coming to talk to us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it's been really fun. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for coming to join for Echo. We certainly hope that you come back and bring a lot of your friends with you as well.
Bring more. We'll see you next
definitely. Like I'm already planning next year.
Perfect. Yeah, please. And we'd love to definitely do this again for next year for sure, and just get some more insight would be really awesome.
I'll have a little more specifics on helicopters.
No, just like just everything that we can learn from each other is going to be really great. So thank you for coming by.
No bother.
Thank you, Paula.
No bother at all.
Thank you. Well, that will conclude our episode. Thanks for listening in, and hope you all have a great day.
We'll see you all next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Valor Flight Crew Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, and save lives and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information. Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
That's going to wrap up this episode of the Valor Flight Crew Podcast. A huge thank you to Paula for taking the time to share her story and give us a look into pre-hospital medicine in Ireland. It's always awesome to see how different systems work and realize we're all facing the same challenges and working towards the same goals. As always, thanks for tuning in and being part of this community. We continue to highlight the people and stories that make public safety aviation safer and stronger. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and picked up something new along the way. Until next time, stay safe, take care of each other, and we'll catch you on the next episode.